Welcome. I'm Benjamin Singer. I work with Show Me Integrity, Missouri's democracy reform organization. Also, please put in the chat where you're from in Missouri, and maybe we'll have one or two people from outside Missouri. What organization you're with, if any organization, and we want you all to brag about what work you've done on the initiative process, if anything. That can be signatures you've collected, phone calls you've made, doors you've knocked, postcards you've written, texts you've sent, or even just votes that you've cast. So we're all here for a reason, and we also want you to share in your intro why you are here, why you're passionate about protecting and strengthening the people's initiative process and banning politicians from continuing to interfere with the will of the people through a proactive initiative to amend the Missouri Constitution. So quick note about the Respect Voters Coalition. Who are we? We're a national coalition of pro-democracy organizations. We have groups in about 20 states, including Missouri, and volunteers in all 50 states. We are dedicated to protecting, defending, strengthening, and using the ballot initiative process to improve our democracy. Also, really important, we are cross-partisan. Tonight, believe it or not, there are many people here of different political backgrounds from different parts of the state and with different levels of political experience. In a minute, I'll be asking for 3 volunteers, any of you, to read through some of our current code of conduct. And this is a people's movement. So if the people, you, want to keep improving on our code of conduct, we can. And speaking of a people's movement, please go ahead and keep posting in the chat about you, where you're from, and what you've done to use the initiative process. For me, while we're waiting for people to join, I'll share my personal story is that I grew up in the St. Louis area, and I cared a lot about poverty. And I saw how the corruption in our political system, I saw that as a reason why many issues that face people in poverty weren't getting addressed. So in 2018, I was the communications director of Clean Missouri when we won with 62% and a majority in all 34 of Missouri's state Senate districts. In addition to helping people write a lot of op-eds, hold press conferences, gather signatures, and more, I helped recruit new endorsements across the political spectrum. I went to Tea Party meetings and met with Republican former state senators and mayors, and we got a lot more endorsements from people across the spectrum who didn't like the political games played by legislators and other political insiders. One of Clean Missouri's Republican endorsers, Senator Bob Johnson, is on the phone tonight, and he'll speak a little bit later. But unfortunately, as many of you know, 2 years later in 2020, the Missouri legislature wanted to protect their own jobs over the will of the people, and they placed redistricting on the ballot with deceptive wording, tricking Missouri voters into reversing what we had all just voted for, or 62% of us had voted for. And that's part of why I feel so strongly that we need to do more to take back the power of direct democracy for the people, the way that Article 1, Section 1 of the Missouri Constitution says. So what about all of you? In the chat, I'm going to look and see what people are posting. I see that I see Jamie. We're going to hear from Jamie. I see Josh from Festus, Veterans for All Voters, who thought the ballot language for Amendment 7 was deceptive and doesn't like the trend towards taking away our choices, currently a law student at SLU. I also see Marty Joe Murray, new state rep. When he was a state rep candidate, he was vocal about Mo Ledge. And Marty, I believe you are going to be a new state rep. So welcome. Kathy from Indivisible St. Louis, Reverend Russell Ewell from Faith Voices, new board chair. Michelle Singer from Parkway UCC wants to keep votes counted correctly. I see Teresa, there we go, knocking doors, talking to voters about Amendment 3 and Proposition A. All right, thank you everyone for joining. Tyler, who volunteered for Show Me Integrity and many ballot initiatives. Thank you, Tyler. Donna, who signed petitions, got the word out. So if you just joined, please go ahead and follow the lead of the others who are doing that before you. Introduce yourself, where you're from, orgs you're a part of, and anything you've done for a citizen initiative and why you're passionate about stopping politicians from interfering with the will of the people. All right, on to tonight's agenda. Here's what's ahead. Sass is going to share some slides with our code of conduct, and I'll ask for 3 volunteers to raise their hands and go ahead and read that. So you can start raising your hand if you want. Jonah is going to give a note about how we interact together in the chat. Tony, Teresa, Jamie, and others will go over why we're all here, explain what this is all about. And SAS will share how we're organizing. So if you're a bit confused about what's going on, we'll bring some clarity in a moment. I'll come back to let you know, as ambitious as this all sounds, it is possible. I'll share a story for how another group did a volunteer-led ballot initiative for a more difficult issue and won in another Midwestern state. And we'll hear from a few Missouri leaders about why they're excited for this. Then we'll all go to breakout rooms to start doing exactly what we said we're going to do and get your input into how this movement should be built and how we can build it together. All right, so here's where I ask for those 3 volunteers. SAS, go ahead and share those slides. Go ahead and raise your hand if you want to help read off the slides with our code of conduct. Sorry, I'm looking for raised hands. Actually, we haven't even gotten into how we're going to be doing reactions, but the way to raise your hand is you go at the bottom of your Zoom screen and you click the button raise hand. Elizabeth Franklin, thank you. Why don't you go ahead, unmute yourself and read this first slide?
You bet. The Respect Voters Coalition is dedicated to passing local and state reforms to create a more effective, ethical government of, by, and for the people, instead of allowing big money, powerful lobbyists, and divisive partisanship to continue to overwhelmingly influence our politicians. All those who are part of the Respect Voters Coalition and the movement should share the vision and must be committed to the following code of conduct. And then you can find the link at respectvoters.org/conduct.
Thank you. Dan, go ahead and take the next slide. SAS, go ahead and advance to the next slide.
Okay, I commit to prioritize the good of all voters rather than the priorities of my political party. Commit to work to find common ground on issues big and small. I commit to treat others with respect, dignity, and trust. I commit to admit when I make a mistake, and I commit to avoid rhetoric and behavior that exacerbates the political divide.
Thank you. And then next slide, and we'll hear from Damien.
I commit to uphold the truth and avoid spreading misinformation. Also, I use all platforms, include social media, responsible, be inclusive, and have zero tolerance for discrimination of any kind. Participate in the Respect Voters Coalition movement with a positive, productive attitude, and inspire others to greatness and reward with where is it? The screen is blocking my. Okay.
Reward with attention.
With attention. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry about.
All good, Damien. Thank you for stepping forward. And on that note, everyone, round of applause to Elizabeth, Dan, and Damien for stepping up and speaking out in front of a group of people many of whom they don't know. So thank you all for doing that. All right. Well, we really appreciate you, Elizabeth, Dan, and Damien, for doing that. And in the future, we'll start each meeting by revisiting the code of conduct for how we act when we are participating and we are leading, we are presenting and speaking as part of the Respect Voters Coalition. And again, if you think this could use improvements, additions, changes, we'd love your input for that in the future. All right. Jonah, go ahead and tell us how to engage during the meeting to support each other.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Jonah. I'm here in St. Louis. If you take a moment and look at the little control bar at the bottom of your Zoom meeting, you might have to move your cursor around to get it to show up. You should see a heart icon labeled reactions. And throughout the call or in your breakout rooms, you can use different reactions to express your feelings about what people are saying and what the ideas are that we're talking about. So if you don't mind just going ahead and clicking that button, you'll see a set of reactions that are labeled send with effect. And it'll do a little effect that makes it easier for everybody to see what's going on. If there's something you really like, please send positive reactions, positive energy that way. And if you're saying something and you see that you're getting a negative reaction, it's okay. It doesn't mean you're a terrible person. We're here to be honest with each other. And it's important that we have space to kind of share that real feedback in a way that's going to be really productive. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Sass to tell us more about our goals and what this is going to look like.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up a slide here. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on my personal story because there's a lot we want to get to. But the Respect Voters Coalition recently did a poll, a survey asking supporters across Missouri what they wanted us to focus on in 2025 and 2026. The number one response, as you can see here, is ban the Missouri legislature from continuing to attack the citizen ballot initiative process, including with biased ballot language. And as you can see, over 80% of respondents wanted that. So following up with that, then let's dig into that a little, just for a minute or two. I want you to type your personal answers in the chat to these following questions. You can answer one or both or however you feel inspired. But the questions are, what challenges have you seen or experienced with the current initiative petition process in Missouri? And how have you seen misleading ballot language impact voter decisions or public trust in ballot measures? So go ahead, throw that in the chat. I'll read a few off and then continue from there. But yeah, just however you feel inspired. Ballot candy being used more than once on ballot issues. Oof, yes, I hear you on that. Legislature attempts to continually overturn the will of the people. Yeah, we get that all the time. It's happening everywhere. And definitely in Missouri, for sure. Amendment 7, completely misleading ballot language. Yeah, we've had a couple people comment on that, that it's, yeah, so Michaela, so ballot candy means that they put, then we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but that it's like emphasizing or giving a lot of fluff to a certain part of a change in the law. And that's what gets shown to voters. And it's to trick and deceive voters into voting for something that doesn't really do the thing that they think it's going to do. Yeah, so it's confusing language as a ploy. Cindy, fantastic. It was a much better, shorter way of saying it. Joy Lynn's concerned about the state legislature trying to overturn the brand new right of women to choose. I mean, yeah, that's all initiatives we have this problem with. Legislature eviscerated the puppy mill regulations that were passed overwhelmingly. Wording on Prop 7 was insane. It keeps going. You guys have really good stuff in here. I'm gonna keep pushing forward because I want to make sure you all have an opportunity to interact with each other in the breakout rooms. But you're right, those answers I was reading off are exactly correct, and Missouri is not the only state with these problems. But what we can do here is set a precedent for something better. That something better, we think, is to file an initiative petition to protect and improve the initiative petition process itself. So what does that mean? I'm going to pass it to Jamie, actually, to talk about that a little bit. So Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, so when it comes to ballot initiative petitions, you can break it up into 3 steps that are really easy to understand on the surface. And I see most of us in here are familiar with one step or another of it, which is phenomenal. It helps everybody be on the same level a lot sooner. But to break it up into 3 steps, the first step is the writing step. It's where we're at now. It's where we're writing the amendment. We're getting the ideas from the people, and we're getting to know what we want to put on the ballot when we submit it. So right now we're writing our amendment, and we're submitting it through the Secretary of State's office. We're going through the very initial approval process. Most of this process doesn't have anything to do with political divides. Typically, the goal is through the elections division is, do we meet the criteria for a petition? Great. Then we move on to step 2. Step 2 is where the rubber really, really meets the road. This is the part where most of us are familiar with. It's the part where most of us have the most experience with, is collecting signatures. I believe it's 225,000 signatures is what we have to collect from across the state to be able to make it onto the ballot. So the biggest portion of this is going to be making sure that we get those signatures. We're getting in contact with voters who want these protections put into law so that they can have their voice sit in there and we can get them to the vote. Now, the third part that we break this into is what I actually consider the campaign portion. This is where we're knocking on doors, we're making phone calls, we're convincing people why they need to vote yes and why this needs to pass. It's great when we can collect signatures. That's a huge step. It gets a lot of voters on our side, but a lot of people are busy. They don't have time to volunteer. A lot of people just don't run into signature gatherers. So that's where we start knocking doors. We're calling our friends. We're having meetings. We're going to events. And we make sure that everybody knows what we're doing, what's going on, and how we can stop it. And we convince them that we need them to vote yes. So one of the smaller things that we're focusing on, especially, is what is called the ballot title. So that's what physically goes onto the ballot that people read when they go to vote. It's that paragraph that's usually at the end of the ballot or on the back of the ballot that says, "Do you wish to amend the Missouri State Constitution to," and then blah, dot, 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 dot. One of the biggest issues that we've seen, especially in the last couple of years, or in the last couple of petitions especially, is changing the ballot titles to not fully reflect what the petition was always about and what the campaign was focused on. I know a lot of people mentioned it. It's one thing that I had brought up to a lot of folks before, is Amendment 7. So to explain what happened with Amendment 7, I'm going to really touch on ballot candy as quickly as I can. Ballot candy is exactly what it sounds like. It is something that is very sweet that goes onto the ballot that is not good for us. What we saw in Amendment 7 was at the very top of the ballot, the first thing that they listed was, "Do you wish to amend the Missouri State Constitution to prevent non-citizens from voting?" That is already the law. But that's the first thing that you read, even though it has nothing to do with ranked choice voting. So if your attention stopped there, all you see is, "I don't want non-citizens voting." And that corrupts the entire petition process, because that prevents folks from getting the real information. And if people are voting on things that they don't understand, they're voting unintentionally against their own interest. And that's something that we have to prevent, because politicians are not going to do that for us. So what are we proposing? So a big part of what we want to do is we want to lock down our initiative petition process. We want to make sure that the legislator cannot change or appeal anything passed by our citizens initiative petition process without a vote of 80% in both chambers. If being involved in the state capitol as much as I have been, I can tell you that that is nearly an impossible standard for that state legislature as it sits right now. Which means that the will of the people, the voice of the people, would be secure, with the exception of something truly terrible coming across. But we've had this ballot initiative process in our Constitution for over 100 years. It has never been abused by the people, and there is no indicator that it ever will be. So the only way to make the initiative process more difficult is to use the initiative petition process itself. It means that the politicians in Jeff City can't make those changes on their own. We have to approve them before they can make them. And then we also want to take the power out of the politicians' hands to draft these ballot titles and add in the ballot candy completely, by creating an independent citizens commission who would be able to work outside of partisan politics to read what the amendment says and give it good, honest ballot titles that do not impede what we're trying to do and do not mislead voters, which is the biggest portion of that, is misleading voters. And it's done intentionally, and that's regardless of political party. That is an awful, awful thing for elected leaders to do. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Teresa.
Hi, everybody. So with those 3 steps listed earlier in mind, here are some of our deadlines that are coming up. So now to the end of February 2025, it's kind of a soft deadline, but we want to draft, finalize, and file that ballot initiative Next, we're looking at March to May of 2026 as one of our hard deadlines. In that time, we need to collect and submit that 225,000 geographically distributed valid signatures from registered Missouri voters. And then finally, from March 2026 to November 3rd of 2026, we have to convince a majority of Missouri voters to vote yes on our ballot measure. For writing the policy, we need to hear from you and as many Missourians as possible, because this is your constitution and we want the voters to vote yes. So we need to make sure all voters are represented by the policy and included in that process. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Sass.
Thanks. Yeah. And the purpose of this call is for us all to get to know each other and to start getting your input of how and of if and how we should pull this off. We have done some preliminary work. Many of us, as you notice, have worked on successful statewide initiative petition campaigns before. And based on what you all put in the chat, there's a ton of valuable experience just on this call. One thing we put together already is a skeleton of an organizational structure that we borrowed from an incredible winning campaign that was run in Michigan a few years ago. Benj will touch on that a little bit later. It has 8 committees: fundraising, communications, policy, field, outreach, which we're kind of thinking of as a combination of getting group endorsements, as well as all of us being ambassadors for this campaign inside of other groups that we're already a part of. An education committee, events committee, and then a supply chain committee. I've dealt with tens of thousands of signatures in a single city before, and it's no small feat to expand that to hundreds of thousands across an entire state. But again, this is just what we've come up with so far based on previous successful models. But ultimately, it's going to be up to all the people doing the work to figure out, how to best work together. And hopefully, those folks are going to include many of you. I'm going to close this slide. I'm going to pass it to Tony. I'm going to tell you about another thing here.
Okay, I'm going to have to turn off my video. So to be fully transparent and honest, we are dealing with some current politics. We have a new Secretary of State coming in who we have reason to believe will give us a worse ballot title than the current Secretary. So we have already filed an initiative to try and get a ballot title under the current Secretary. Ideally, we'll get a bunch of input from you all and other Missourians over the next few months. Write a much better constitutional amendment, file it, and get a great ballot title. But we wanted to have this purely as a backup in case this new secretary just keeps screwing us over with terrible ballot titles. That information is publicly available both on the Missouri Secretary of State's website and in this memo that we're linking in the chat right now. Feel free to share that memo with any Missourians you like, by the way. I just want to remind everyone to use those reactions to express yourselves throughout the call. And here's Benji again.
Thank you, Tony. Everyone give it up for Tony, who almost 3.5 weeks ago, on a volunteer meeting we held, was like, hey, if you do an initiative to protect the initiative process, I'm there, I'm in the street. And then, of course, we polled the people of Missouri and they agreed with Tony overwhelmingly. So everyone go ahead, go to the reactions, use the send with effect if you want, rocket ships or hearts or thumbs up to swarm up all around you. All right. So this may sound like a lot to accomplish. It may sound unrealistic. All of us have been part of ballot initiatives in Missouri, or many of us have been part of ones that did have big money behind them, that weren't just grassroots people coming together thinking, what's this policy going to look like? That where we really had a say in that policy from the beginning. So this may seem radical, but the truth is that it's actually been done before. So in 2018, a woman named Katie Fahey in Grand Rapids, Michigan, posted on Facebook the day after the 2016 election. She did not work in politics. She worked in recycling. And she posted in Facebook, hey, everyone, I want to end gerrymandering in Michigan. Who wants to help? Smiley face. And the response was overwhelming. Regular people, almost none of them as involved as any of you, flooded her Facebook comments and said, yes, count me in. How can I help? So they created a Facebook group and they structured a movement, and together they figured out, hey, we have ballot initiatives. We can use that to end gerrymandering. And they looked around at how redistricting was done, not only in their state, but states across the country. And they realized no state was really doing redistricting well. The regular volunteers did a ton of research asking the question, how could we form a new type of redistricting policy that actually works? How could we put the citizens in charge? Maybe even create an independent citizens commission that would be responsible for drawing maps. They approached numerous establishment democracy groups across the state and across the country. All of those groups, except maybe one, said, if you don't have money, you don't have experts, and you don't have polling, we're not interested in helping. And those establishment players also told Katie and the other volunteers that an independent citizens commission is a crazy idea. That's not how redistricting is done anywhere. That's not how it works or should work. But these regular people, like all of you, said, well, you know what? We live here in Michigan and we don't like the way things are working, and we don't want a model that doesn't work for our state. So they did a ton of research, like I said, and they went around, they held 77 town halls across the state of Michigan. I may have the exact number wrong, but they really included the people in helping shape the policy. And they wrote something up. They got that negative reaction from a lot of those establishment groups, but then people were really invested. They formed statewide teams, they formed local teams across the state, and together, volunteers gathered over 400,000 signatures without paying a single vendor to do it. I'm going to repeat that. They gathered over 400,000 signatures, all volunteer, not a single paid signature. Because when you help write a constitutional amendment for Missouri, you're willing to go out for a couple hours every week for 30 weeks and gather 17 signatures at a time, to gather 1,000 or 2,000 signatures, because you know what? I helped write that constitutional amendment. They listened to me. That's what we're doing. And ultimately, yes, they needed to raise money, but when they had 4,000 active volunteers, which they had, they told people, look, if each one of us starts a fundraising page and raises $10 from each of 10 friends, we can hit our fundraising goal by the end of the weekend. And they did. So that's what's possible with a real people's movement. That's what we're going to do. This isn't going to be a staff-led, consultant-led effort. This is going to be a volunteer-led effort where all of you and 3,000 other people are going to shape this movement. So thank you for being here. And I'm going to hand it off to Tony again.
Tony Easter here. Back when folks were collecting signatures for Clean Missouri, I thought, this is politics worth getting involved in. I attended a Show Me Integrity presentation. Then I had a yard party so they could talk to others I know. I was proud to vote for it and see it pass. I was pretty crushed when the legislature tricked us into voting to repeal Clean Missouri in 2020. That made me pretty mad and led me to ramp up my activism. After being a clinic escort for 6 or 7 years, I dedicated myself last year to the Reproductive Rights Initiative. 878 signatures in less than 3 months, and then phone banked and canvassed for the rest of the year. It took many, many organizations and individuals to get that amendment voted into law. Together, we all did it. And we know that battle is not over. To me, this movement here, to defend the initiative petition process, is a logical next step, and I am prepared to do battle. I think most of you probably feel a similar passion. Now I'm passing it to Freddie.
Thank you very much. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Fred Steinbach. I was mayor of Chesterfield, and I helped John Ashcroft's campaigns in 1984 for governor, 1988, then his Senate campaigns and so forth. And Ashcroft, who was very conservative, protected the initiative petition process. And that inspired me and many Republicans to think that something should be done. What he actually said was, and you keep in mind that the Democrats were bitter that conservatives using the initiative petition process passed the Hancock Amendment with only 55% of the vote. So now the Democrats wanted to destroy the initiative petition process. And Ashcroft, when he vetoed it, said The General Assembly should be reluctant to enact legislation which places any impediments on the initiative power which are inconsistent with the reservation found in the Constitution. I ask that this legislature listen to the advice from our former governor when considering further legislative action. That's a message I'm going to try to pass on over the next 5 months. Thank you, Tony.
Up next is Teresa.
Hi again, everybody. My name's Teresa. The past year, I volunteered and held both Amendment 3 and Prop A, and I know that there are many of us that worked on those initiatives because to us, they mattered so much, more than politicians, more than Republican or Democrat. Those were issues that were important to us, and both passed. So thanks to the work of the people, not politicians. That's how those got on the ballot. That's how they got voted for. It's now been just a little over a month since the election, and politicians are already trying to change and undo that. We voted on them, but they're already trying to undo Amendment 3. They're trying to put roadblocks in place for Prop A. So what I'm trying to do here is keep the power where it belongs with the people. And that's why I'm excited to be part of this movement with all of you and this whole group. Look at how many of us showed up today. When our politicians fail us, we have that initiative petition process in Missouri to fall back on to help make things right and correct it. They should not be able to alter it. They shouldn't be able to undo our decisions. This needs to stay as a power for the people and by the people for us to use. So with that, I'm going to pass it back off.
Up next is Shantae.
Awesome. Thank you, Sass. This definitely needs to be people powered. Having a people power campaign will decrease the cost significantly. We will also have to figure out collectively how to raise funds for things like expert lawyers, professional polling, TV ads, and many other things. I won't dive into that today, but we do want your ideas on how we can and should be raising funds to put together a winning campaign. For now, I'll pass it back to you, Sass, so that you can set us up in the breakout sessions.
Thanks. Yes, we're almost to the breakout rooms. We're very close. Super excited. Yeah, so we're gonna have 6 breakout rooms, each with like different categories. So and each will have a facilitator. So Spencer will be facilitating the strategy and goals breakout room. Benj will be facilitating the people-powered policy process breakout room. Teresa will be facilitating the volunteer and local organizing breakout room. Tony will facilitate the structure and operations breakout room. Shantae will be facilitating the messaging and fundraising breakout room, and Jonah will be facilitating the lessons and inspiration breakout room. I'm going to leave this up while I keep talking, so feel free to just kind of think about which one you might want to join. Each breakout room will have a few discussion questions. When we open the breakout rooms, you'll be able to freely join whichever you like. If you're having trouble getting into one, just say in the chat which one you'd like to go to, and then I can manually move you there myself. You don't have to spend a ton of time trying to fuss with the tech. If you're struggling with it, that's okay. Just say it in the chat. Right now, Elena, if you can, we're putting a link in the chat for a survey we need everyone to take immediately after the call. It'd actually be best if everybody could open that link right now once we get it down in there. Boom, right there. So please open that link right now to help remind you to take it when you're done, or to leave a moment for yourself to take it when you're done. This survey will tell us your strengths and to help us learn more about you and what roles you might be best suited for. And it's really just for everybody to be able to get connected and know who's available. We're not, we're not gatekeepers here. I will say we are going to leave the meeting running past 5. It'll just go as long as it needs to. We don't want to interrupt your conversations in the breakout rooms. So, you go till you're done or until you need to take that survey, you need to get off. That's totally fine. This whole section that you just watched has been recorded and will be promptly posted on the Respect Voters Coalition YouTube channel, but your breakout rooms will not be recorded. So facilitators, please take screenshots of your breakout rooms. So we always like to take a group selfie with as many people as we can. And actually, right now, everyone who wants to be in a group screenshot, turn on your cameras. I'm actually going to stop the share just for a moment, and I'm going to switch to gallery view. And just so I get the recording here, I'll take a great frame out of it. If everyone wants to give a big smile, super excited. This is so cool, so wonderful, so glad to have you all. I'll pull that out of the recording and we'll share it around for everybody. But otherwise, it's just a big thank you to everyone for being here and showing that this is something Missourians really want. We peaked at about 80 participants. We organized this in like a week. So that's incredible. That's so awesome. And so
Everyone give it up for SAS for organizing and coordinating this. Give it up for SAS.
it was not just me. I had so much help. There's a ton of incredible volunteers you saw today who helped out. But I know I'm looking forward to working with all of you more. And with that, I'm gonna open all the breakout rooms and then I'll share that screen again just to show what they all are. So opening all of the rooms, boom. You should be able to find it if you go into the more or you hit the breakout rooms in your Zoom bar. And you can go join the ones you want. Facilitators, please add yourselves to the breakout rooms that you're assigned to. And some of the breakout rooms will also have note takers. If you end up in a breakout room that does not have a note taker, hopefully your facilitator we would love volunteers in each one, a single volunteer in each one to help take notes. But they'll be going over the discussion because so I'll hang out here. And like I said, if you're having trouble, let me throw this back up on the screen. If you're having trouble getting yourself into a breakout room, just put in the chat which one you want to go to, and I'll do it for you. So yeah, incredible.